In the floating world of Eryndor, islands drift above an endless sea of swirling mist, their jagged crystal forests scattering sunlight into dazzling colors. Rivers of liquid starlight weave through the sky, and magic is everywhere. Wild, untamed, both a gift and a danger. At the center of it all lies the Veil, an invisible but powerful barrier that separates Eryndor from the ether, a chaotic realm of raw magic and ancient spirits. Guarding this boundary is the Order of the Lumina, a secretive group of mages dressed in flowing white and gold robes, their eyes glowing softly with magic. They wield the light of ether, a force drawn from the ether itself, which they claim is too dangerous for ordinary people to use. But down in Eryndor's underbelly, far from the Lumina's towering citadels, Kael Draven lives by his wits. A wiry young man in his mid-20s, Kael has sharp green eyes, messy black hair, and a smirk that never quite fades. Quick with his words and even quicker with his hands, he makes a living stealing enchanted trinkets from Lumina temples, rings that glow, amulets that whisper, and vials of shimmering dust, all of which fetch a decent price on the black market. To Kael, the Lumina are nothing more than hypocrites, hoarding magic while the common folk struggle. He sets his sights on a small shrine perched on the edge of a floating island. The job starts smoothly. He climbs the slick walls, disables a weak magical ward, and slips inside. The air hums with unseen energy, and he quickly pockets a glowing sapphire from the altar. But then something unexpected happens. The floor shifts beneath him, revealing a hidden staircase leading into darkness. Against his better judgment, Kael follows it down. At the bottom, he finds an ancient chamber, its black stone walls carved with glowing runes. In the center, resting on a pedestal, is a small obsidian shard pulsing with eerie violet light. It feels important, valuable. Ignoring the chill running down his spine, he grabs it. A jolt of energy shoots through his arm. A strange ringing fills his ears. And then, nothing. Stuffing the shard into his satchel, he flees into the night. The next morning, Kael wakes up in his cluttered little room to find his hands trembling with a faint silver glow. Before he can process what's happening, objects around him start floating. His rusted knife, a handful of copper coins, even his broken chair. Panic sets in. Magic isn't for people like him. It belongs to the Lumina. If they find out, he's as good as dead. As he struggles to regain control, the objects crash to the floor, loud enough to attract unwanted attention. Voices rise outside. Footsteps approach. He grabs his cloak and the shard and bolts into the streets. But trouble is already waiting for him. As he hurries across a rope bridge swaying between two crumbling platforms, a figure steps out of the mist. Veyra is a sight to behold. Tall, graceful, with piercing blue eyes and silver hair woven into a braid that gleams like metal. She wears the robes of the Lumina, but hers are designed for battle, and a rune-etched longsword hangs at her side. Her voice is sharp, cold. Kael Draven, she says, like it's a curse. You've stolen something dangerous. The Umbral Shard isn't a simple trinket. It's the key to the Veil's balance. Return it, or I'll take it from you. One way or another. Kael doesn't wait to hear the rest. He feints left, then dives right, barely dodging as her blade slices through the ropes of the bridge. It lurches violently. Thinking fast, he scrambles to the edge and leaps just as the structure collapses behind him, Veyra disappearing into the swirling mist. His heart pounds as he dashes into the maze-like alleys of the lower district, the shard burning cold against his leg. He doesn't know what the Umbral Shard really is or why it's awakened this strange power in him. But one thing is certain, he's not just a thief anymore. He's a fugitive, and the Lumina won't stop until they get their prize back. Kael's life is turning upside down, and his new powers are getting wilder every day. At first, it was just floating knives and chairs, but now weird stuff keeps happening. Shadows wiggle and twist around him like they're alive, stretching across the floor of whatever hiding spot he's ducked into. Sometimes, when he's trying to sleep, creepy whispers sneak into his head, soft, scratchy voices from the ether that he can't quite understand. They sound like a mix of wind and secrets, making his skin prickle and his stomach flip. He's scared, confused, and out of ideas, so he decides to find someone who might know what's going on. That someone is Mira, a weird old lady who used to be a Lumina scholar but got kicked out for asking too many questions. Now she's a rogue alchemist, living in a cluttered shack on a tiny floating island covered in glowing mushrooms. Kael finds Mira stirring a bubbling pot that smells like sour berries and melted metal. She's short and wiry, with wild gray hair sticking out like a bird's nest and round goggles perched on her nose. Her hands are stained purple from her potions, and she talks fast, like she's got too many thoughts to keep inside. When Kael shows her the obsidian shard, still glowing with its spooky purple light, she gasps and nearly drops her spoon. "Oh, you've gone and grabbed something big, haven't you?" she says, her eyes wide. She explains that the shard isn't just a fancy rock. It's a piece of the veil itself, ripped off long ago when someone betrayed the Lumina. And the Lumina? They've been lying to everyone. The veil isn't only a wall to keep the ether out. It's a jail, locking up the Eldryn, a bunch of super powerful beings who look like gods. They got banished there after a huge war that almost smashed Eryndor to bits, leaving craters and broken islands all over the place. Mira's voice gets quiet as she leans closer, her goggles fogging up. That shard coming loose? It's making the veil weak. The Eldryn are waking up, and they're mad. And you, kid, you're not just some sneaky thief. You're a Veilborn. Kael blinks at her, confused. She says it means he was born with a special tie to the ether, like a thread connecting him to that wild magic place. That's why the shard picked him, why he's got powers now. But here's the bad news. The Lumina hate Veilborn. They think people like Kael are too dangerous to live, and they'll hunt him down to stop his magic from growing stronger. Kael's head spins with all this. He's pacing around Mira's shack, kicking at piles of dusty books and weird jars full of glowing goo, when trouble finds him again. The door bangs open, and there's Veyra solo, her silver braid swinging and her glowing sword ready. Her blue eyes lock on Kael, and she steps forward, looking ready to slice him up. "No more running," she snaps. But before she can grab him, the sky outside rumbles like a giant stomach. A huge crack splits the air above Mira's island, a jagged black rip that sparkles with purple light. It's a rift, and out of it come shadowy tendrils, long and twisty like octopus arms made of smoke. They lash out, smashing mushrooms and knocking over Mira's potion table, sending green liquid everywhere. People scream and run as the tendrils grab at anything they can reach. Kael freezes, his heart pounding like a drum. Then something crazy happens. His hands glow brighter, and a rush of energy bursts out of him. Without thinking, he throws up his arms, and a shimmery shield pops up around Veyra just as a tendril swings at her. It bounces off, sizzling like wet wood in a fire. Veyra stumbles back, her sword dropping a little, her mouth open in shock. She stares at Kael, breathing hard. She's supposed to kill him. That's what the Lumina told her. But now she's not so sure. Why would a thief save her? Why does he have power like that? The rift keeps spitting out shadows and Mira's yelling, "We've got to move!" Veyra hesitates, then makes a choice. She grabs Kael's arm and says, "You're with me now. We need to figure this out." So, against all her training, Veyra teams up with Kael and Mira. The three of them dodge the flailing tendrils and run from the shack, the island shaking under their feet. Kael's still freaked out. He's a Veilborn, whatever that means, and the shard in his pocket feels heavier than ever. Mira's muttering about old books and secrets, and Veyra's gripping her sword, looking back at the rift with a frown. They've got no clue what's coming next, but one thing's clear. The truth about the Veil, the Eldryn, and Kael's powers is bigger and scarier than any of them thought. Kael, Veyra, and Mira sneak into the Lumina's grand citadel, a giant fortress glowing like a star on top of a huge floating island. It's the fanciest place Kael's ever seen. Tall towers of white stone sparkle in the sunlight, with golden flags flapping in the breeze and bridges made of light stretching between them. Inside, it's all shiny floors, big windows, and statues of stern-looking mages holding glowing orbs. The air smells clean, like fresh rain, but it's so quiet it makes Kael's stomach twist. They duck behind pillars and creep through halls, dodging guards in fancy robes who carry swords that hum with magic. Mira's got a sneaky potion that makes them hard to see, but Kael's still nervous. His hands keep glowing, and shadows wiggle around his feet like naughty pets. They find a secret room deep inside, hidden behind a wall that slides open when Mira presses the right spot. It's dark and creepy, with shelves full of dusty scrolls and a big table covered in maps of the Veil. In the middle, there's a weird machine, a twisty thing of gold and glass that's sucking sparkly light out of the air. Mira gasps and starts reading the papers, her goggles slipping down her nose. "Oh no," she whispers. "The High Archon, the Lion. He's been stealing the Veil's energy. He wants to live forever, and he's breaking the Veil on purpose." Kael's jaw drops. The Umbral Shard wasn't stolen by some random thief. The lion threw it out to speed things up. He thinks when the veil falls, he can grab the Eldryn's power and be the boss of everything. The citadel turns into a wild battlefield, and it's the coolest, scariest thing Kael's ever seen. The shiny white towers shake as booms echo through the halls, and bits of glowing stone crash down like sparkly rain. Kael's shadow magic is buzzing now. He waves his hands, and big, twisty shadows shoot out like stretchy arms, grabbing Thalion's creepy mages and tossing them aside. His green eyes glow a little, and he's dodging blasts of light, jumping over cracks in the floor. Veyra's right beside him, her silver braid flying as she swings her sword. It's glowing super bright, leaving trails of light in the air, and she slices through anything that gets close, yelling, "Stay back!" Mira's having a blast. She's tossing bottles of fizzy potions from her bag, and they explode in pops of green and purple smoke, knocking bad guys off their feet. Her wild gray hair's a mess, and she's giggling like a kid with a new toy. Thalion's not playing nice, though. He's standing in the middle of the throne room, his gold robe flapping like a cape. He's been sucking up ether energy for years, and now he's changing, growing taller and taller until he's a giant monster made of light. His arms stretch out, all shiny and spiky, and his face twists into something freaky with glowing eyes and a roaring mouth. He swings a huge hand, smashing a tower to bits, and the whole island shakes like it's going to fall apart. Chunks of rock and crystal tumble into the misty abyss below, and the air crackles with wild magic. Kael ducks a flying statue and yells, "This guy's nuts!" Mira nods, tossing another potion that splashes the lion with sticky goo, but it just makes him madder. Then the veil starts breaking for real. The starry ceiling rips open, and big, jagged rifts pop up everywhere. Black and purple cracks that spit out Eldryn warriors. These guys are wild, tall and glowing, like ghosts made of light and smoke, with long claws and angry faces. They're mad at everybody, swinging at Thalion's mages and the trio too. One leaps at Kael, all claws and snarls, but he throws up a shadow shield just in time, and it bounces off with a loud zap. Veyra spins her sword and cuts through another, shouting, "We can't fight them all!" Mira's chucking potions left and right, yelling, "Hang on, I've got an idea!" But the island's crumbling faster, and the rifts keep spitting out more Eldryn. Kael's heart's pounding, and Xyretha's voice slides into his head again, smooth and sneaky. "Last chance, kid," it says. "Let the veil fall, and we'll make you a king." Kael looks at the shard in his hand. It's glowing like a tiny purple sun, and he almost says yes. But then he sees Veyra blocking a blast for Mira, and Mira tossing a potion to save a falling guard, and he knows what's right. "No way," he mutters, shaking his head. He runs to the citadel's core, a big round machine in the throne room, pulsing with veil energy like a giant heartbeat. It's all twisty pipes and sparkly lights, humming loud enough to rattle his teeth. With a big yell, he jumps up and slams the Umbral Shard right into it. The shard cracks and shatters, sending out a huge wave of purple and silver light. Boom! It's so bright Kael has to squint, and the shockwave knocks everyone flat. The rifts snap shut like slamming doors, sucking the Eldryn back into the ether with angry howls. The lion screams as his shiny monster body fizzles out, shrinking him back to normal. But the island's done for. It's falling apart, and the floor collapses under him. He grabs at the air, but he's too late, tumbling into the dark abyss with a fading yell as the citadel breaks into pieces. Kael's not doing great either. The blast hit him hard, and he's lying on the cracking floor, his cloak torn and his chest hurting bad. Shadows flicker around him, weaker now, and he can barely move. Veyra runs over, her blue eyes wide with worry. "Come on, you dummy, get up," she says, grabbing his arm. She pulls him to his feet and drags him toward a shaky bridge of light, dodging falling rocks. Mira's already there, waving her hammer and shouting, "Hurry, it's going down!" The island tilts, and they stumble across just as it tips and plummets into the misty nothing below, crashing with a rumble that shakes the sky. They land on a smaller floating chunk, panting and staring at the mess, bits of the citadel floating away like broken toys. Kael flops onto his back, breathing hard, his hands still glowing a tiny bit. Veyra sits next to him, her sword dim now, and Mira plops down too, grinning through the dirt on her face. "Well," Mira says, "that was a big boom. They're safe for now." But Kael knows things are different. The veil's holding, Thalion's gone, and he's still got some magic left. What's next? He's too tired to think about it yet. A few weeks after the big battle, Eryndor starts to feel alive again. The floating islands aren't shaking anymore, and the crystal forests sparkle brighter under a soft, golden sun. Little rivers of starlight flow smoothly through the sky, and people are poking their heads out of their homes, smiling for the first time in ages. The Lumina, though, they're a mess. Their shiny citadels gone, smashed into the abyss, and the mages left behind are arguing over who's in charge. Veyra's right in the middle of it, her silver braid bouncing as she stomps around in her patched-up white robe. She's got her glowing sword strapped to her hip, and her blue eyes are fierce. "We're fixing this," she tells a group of nervous Lumina guards, her voice strong. "Kael gave us a chance, and I'm not wasting it." She's made a promise to herself, to make the Lumina fair and kind, not bossy snobs like her dad, the lion, wanted. She stands on a cracked balcony, looking out at the healing islands, and takes a deep breath of the fresh, windy air. Mira's a different story. The wild old alchemist doesn't trust all this healing stuff. She's too curious for that. One morning, she packs up her bag with clinking potion bottles, her trusty hammer, and a bunch of weird glowing rocks she found in the citadel's rubble. Her gray hair's still a fluffy mess, and her purple-stained hands wave goodbye to Veyra. "I'm off to poke around the ether's leftovers," she chirps, grinning through her crooked goggles. She hops onto a tiny floating island she rigged with a rickety propeller, chugging away into the wild edges of Eryndor. The last anyone sees of her, she's disappearing into a misty canyon, muttering about secrets still hiding out there. The air smells like burnt sugar where she left, and a few sparkly potion spills glitter on the ground. Then the scene shifts to a quiet little village, tucked on a small green island with wobbly wooden houses and a lazy river trickling by. Kids are laughing, chasing glow bugs through the grass, and smoke puffs from chimneys, smelling like warm bread. In a tiny shack at the edge of town, there's Kael, alive. He's sitting on a creaky porch, his black hair messier than ever, falling over a big, jagged scar that runs down his cheek. His cloak's torn and patched, and he's leaning back in a wobbly chair, sipping from a chipped mug. He looks beat up, but okay, his green eyes twinkling with that sneaky spark he's always had. The whispers from Xyrith and the Eldryn? Gone. Finally quiet, but when he opens his hand, a tiny shadow flickers in his palm, like a little wiggly friend that won't go away. He smirks, a crooked grin spreading across his face, and mutters to himself, "Not done yet, huh?" He flips a coin with his other hand, catching it mid-air, and chuckles like he's got a secret plan brewing. The sky's peaceful for a moment, all soft pinks and purples as the sun dips low. But then, a low rumble rolls through the air, like a sleepy giant waking up. The ground shakes just a tiny bit, and people in the village look up, confused. High above, the veil, that shimmery invisible wall, flickers, sending out a quick flash of purple light. It's holding steady, for now. Kael tilts his head, staring at it with a mix of worry and excitement.